So, no matter how much planning you do, understand that the path is likely to take you in a different direction, and you may want to be okay with that. So, there's an expression that if you want to hear God laugh, tell him what you're planning. And, you know, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, I think the meaning of that expression right now is kind of perfect for how it is I'm feeling right now. I think I've always been a big believer of like thinking about the whole idea that if you do things as well and as cleanly and as effectively as you can do, then you'll reap the benefits and the reward. And reward doesn't necessarily need to be tangible or financial, but there will always be a good positive benefit if you just kind of do things as well and as perfectly and as flawlessly as you can. But as I think about that kind of thinking, which I think is, just very logical when you feel like you want to have control over stuff, I realize how, as I get to this point of my adulthood, I realize how oddly and innocently misguided it is. And I think I've always known that, but as I kind of reflect on all of the times that I've tried to do everything by the book and cleanly and perfectly, and it still doesn't exactly kind of work out the way that I had hoped and the way that I wanted to. And, I think now it kind of really sits on my heart a little bit, because even though I know that logically, it doesn't change the idea of like believing in the principle, because who likes being disappointed, right? And so I find myself at this point and, thinking about that lens through a lot of different things. My career, and even just kind of like the way that I plan things, kind of like financially, goals that I'd like to set, whatever that is personally. And it hurts to kind of think about all those kinds of things and realize that I still kind of can't really seem to find myself to that. And it's not, I can't seem to find myself to the end point. It's not because I don't want those things. It's just that, life gets in the way, And I don't know. I think that I'm especially feeling that way, as I kind of think about all the turns and all the things that I had hoped that I would be able to do and accomplish. And I don't, and this sounds really horrible because I'm very, very grateful with all of the things that I have been able to kind of achieve, and that even despite living through a very, very life-altering trauma, that I'm still able to kind of rebound and have some semblance of control and success to having gotten to this point. But even in having those things, it still wasn't exactly the route that I had charted out for me. And believe me, it is not lack of gratitude. I think it's more of maybe slight disappointment. And me also kind of learning how to kind of cope and embrace that. I've never wanted to be seen as someone that was unappreciative of everything she's been able to have. But now as I reflect on that path and journey, I just kind of find myself realizing that, you know, planning is, we can do as much as we can, and I don't think I'll ever stop planning. I just, and maybe the way that I'm trying to kind of flip the positive here, because my focus is all about trying to find, you know, the glass half full and to shift the perspective, that I'm finding that maybe the path that I'm charting out and where it lands me is because the universe is trying to kind of tell me that it's because I'm supposed to be led to a different type of endpoint. And I'm not speaking about anything specific. I'm just kind of highlighting the idea that no matter how you plan and you end up at a point that you think is where you want to be, maybe that's like what you need to kind of truly have your eyes opened with where your path truly should be. So I guess basically the big takeaway and the big lesson here isn't that, you know, you shouldn't plan. It's just kind of allowing yourself to see and understand that once you get to the destination, that may not necessarily be the end. Maybe it's really meant to be your springboard or your jump off point to where you should really be. And as long as you allow yourself to see a couple of different type of endpoints, then it may not be the worst thing in the world. So I guess you kind of have to allow yourself the ability to kind of see the picture broader, and to allow yourself to be open to possibilities even as you work your way through your path. And I have to believe in that principle, because I don't believe that if I think about the experiences and I think about surviving the stroke and everything, I don't believe that getting through all of that was just not to have some type of other more meaningful endpoint. I just need to kind of be open to kind of understanding what that meaningful endpoint is. I don't know. Just some pondering, and this was completely unscripted. But I would say one of the most meaningful lessons that I'm understanding, that even the most charted paths aren't always necessarily meant to be your endpoint. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one? I'll see you in the next one.